Yeah, you do have to have those people that are willing to be like, F it, I don't care, let that man die, right? That's hard to say. That's scary. I can't even imagine myself saying that, but I get how societies have to have that spectrum or that gradient so that we can push for change and so that things can evolve. Because if nobody is willing to go as far as to say that and to feel comfortable being that cold and callous, then we get caught into same old, and nothing ever changes. Nobody feels the compelling to protest evil or the compelling to push up against oppression. So sometimes you got to have the crazy people, right? And when I say crazy, I just mean the radicals that are like, no, burn it down. We going to make it happen. I don't care what happens or what the consequences are, which is again why I'm giving a therapeutic assessment rather than my own personal opinions and saying what you should or shouldn't feel like. I'm doing an assessment because I'm checking on the hearts of the people. Where are the hearts of the people? It does us no good to engage in outrage culture if our lives actually don't produce things that combat the things that we're outraged about. It's not about changing the world, right? But it's about taking personal responsibility for your corner of the world and doing what you can to invoke change within it. Just getting lost in the malaise of what the internet tells you to be mad about today is not the way. Hello, family, and welcome back to the Bastion of Critical Thinking. My name is Raven, therapist, thought leader, and theologian, and I am always so happy to have you here with me today. If you're new here, welcome, have a seat. We call ourselves the Critical Thinkers over here in the Bastion, and we do that because that's all we really do over here is critically think. We laugh a ton too sometimes because I ain't gonna lie, I'm a little goofy and I be playing, but we also really think deeply through things within culture, psychology, and faith, and we find ways to critique and offer ways to reform them as well, because we never want to critique without also offering a hand up of lifting, right? Or hand of lifting up, if you will. And so that's kind of what we do over here. And if you're interested in that sort of a content, please, please, please subscribe, comment, like, share. I mean, like engage. I'd love to hear from you guys. I always use the word family around here because that's what I consider my YouTube subscribers and the people who come and visit me in my bastion, or in this bastion, if you will. So if you're not new here, welcome. You know what's up. Hey, fam. Hey, girl. Hey, my boy. What's up? And today we're going to be talking about the United Healthcare CEO's murder. And I know you're probably thinking, like you probably always are, because I know I sometimes am all over the place with my content or my material that I cover. But I'm talking about, there is an ambulance going by, so if you hear it, I'm just going to keep talking, but hopefully it's not too bad. I'm talking about it because one, I'm a therapist and a theologian. And so what both of those roles mean is that I look at things within culture on a macro or even a micro level, meaning like us as a collective or us as individuals. And I have conversation and make assessments about where we are and the trajectory of where we're going if we stay on these paths or if we make shifts, right? It's almost like social science, if you will. I've taken these two social sciences, theology and also psychology, and I just make healthy assessments, or I make personal assessments from my academic acumen as well as my experiences and different things of that nature. So with that in mind, I saw all of the responses. I saw the conspiracy theories that have the conspiracy theories that have formulated in response to his killing. And I've also saw the callousness with which a lot of people have approached his killing and his murder. And I don't really have an opinion on either. I could espouse my opinions about it, but I just think, what good would that do? I feel like both of those things have been exhaustively expressed, right? Maybe you believe in the conspiracy theories. Okay, maybe so, whatever, have at it. Or maybe you feel callously about his death and his murder. Or maybe you're the CEO. If I have some CEOs in my audience, maybe you're a fellow CEO or an owner of a company or a more wealthy person who have run across this video and you're like, no, Raven, actually people are wrong and disgusting for responding in the way that they have to this man's death because he was a dad and he was a son and a husband and all of those things. Whatever side of the spectrum you fall on, I have no critiques for you necessarily. However, what I do have is an assessment on what all this means, right? The fact that there has been such a callousness amongst the people, like the people, working class people, in response to his death. And then there's been such an immediate backlash from other CEOs and from corporations and the wealthy class, right? The one percenters, if you will. There's been such a there's been like a vitriolic response from them and a frustrating response from them. Even like when you watch the news, everybody's on the news like, oh my God, I can't believe this person said they didn't care about his death, or this person is so flabbergasted. But like the news people are just so flabbergasted by, I saw some clips on CNN and other mainstream news networks that were so outraged at people's callousness about his death and his murder. And I think that this speaks to something larger, spiritually as well as just culturally, and what this means going forward. And I want to talk about that. As a therapist, I want to give an assessment on all of that. And I want to give an assessment on our hearts, right? And our minds and our spirits and where we are with this, because I don't think that it's just happenstance that our society is responding callously to the death of, or to the murder, cold-blooded murder of a CEO. Again, no opinions about that nonetheless, whatsoever. Nonetheless, we need to talk about it, because even if we feel even if you feel nothing by it, or feel like justice has been served, this still has implications on our collective psyche and the cultural zeitgeist. And we need to assess that and talk about how we're going to move forward from this place and not let it to contaminate the pool, right? The pool that we all share. And even if it does, because I mean, the collective pool that we share, it just, it's filled with whatever it's filled with. But at a bare minimum, we need to at least be doing personal assessments of ourselves to ensure that the pool that we all have to collectively engage in or indulge in isn't also contaminating us as well. And to the extent that it is, we need to do self-assessments to make sure that we're healthy and we are espousing thoughts, beliefs, morality, and character that is reflective of who we want to be, and not who the culture has kind of morphed us into, because so much is happening and we're just consuming, right? So let's get started. Okay, so let's just approach this like a session. That's what I'm going to do. Is that okay? Let me just approach this like how I would do a session, because this is really what I want to do. I want to give an assessment, but before I give my assessment, I always kind of walk through what's happening, but not just what's happening factually in the context of the stories, but I want to know what's happening with people's hearts. Not because it's just some cheesy cliche, but because until you address what's happening in people's hearts and how they feel or how they experienced a situation, the facts really become needless. And they just become irrelevant things that are a part of the story rather than what people are actually experiencing and what they respond to. So with that in mind, let's just kind of address the hearts and the hearts of people in all of the facets of this story. This CEO was murdered. And as a result of that, people have responded callously. And people have responded callously, it seems like, because people are hurting. And people feel the inequities that have existed within, or between rather, working class and CEOs, and how in the 1960s, I think the average CEO's salary was about 21 times higher than the average working class salary. And now it's risen up to 300 and 400 times roughly, right? That's inappropriate and that's problematic. People feel the weight of that. And so people are responding accordingly. Similarly, people are also feeling the weight, and have for a long time felt the weight of the corruption of insurance agencies and insurance companies at large, and how much they want you to pay the most to give you the least, if they give you anything at all, right? And there's been so many heartbreaking stories of people that have come out and said, oh, my wife had cancer and we were on our last, and they told us they were only going to cover 10% of the surgery, and so we went bankrupt trying to make sure that she stayed alive, and then she still died. And like, I've just heard so many stories, or how people have died and insurance companies didn't want to pay out, or at the funeral they got bills that were astronomically high when they were already having to take care of funeral arrangements for their previously sick spouse or child, or so on and so forth. You just hear these horrible, deplorable stories about human suffering, and how oftentimes insurance companies engage these humans that they're technically responsible for because they're paying into this system. They engage these humans as if they're subjects. And right, you kind of have to get it a bit, because you're like, okay, corporations aren't people, right? They are machines. They are machines designed to make tons and tons and tons of money. So machines don't think about the well-being of human beings, especially if they aren't designed to do so, right? And even to the degree that they're designed to do so, They're still machines, and so they'll error, and they'll still seek their own best interests so that they can produce whatever product they were designed to produce. That's what corporations are and have been. And similarly, insurance companies have just fallen right into that pathway. Big machines designed to produce as much profit and incentive and profit for their shareholders and people who pay into them, and make them more wealthy so that they can make their shareholders wealthy, and screw the people who pay into these premiums so that they can have a safety net, right? And a means to protect themselves in the event of an emergency. And so people feel that. And I said all of that to say that's what's at the crux of people's hearts. And all of this confusion that I've seen in mainstream media or elsewhere that have just of people just being so confused and hurt and wondering why people can be so callous and mean towards a dad and a husband and all of those things. Let's just be real for a second. Stop addressing the facts and address people's hearts. People's hearts are broken and they're exhausted and they ain't got no money. Because that's a whole other conversation, and that's a level of expert or an area of expertise that I am not fluent in. But what I do know is, and I just mean economics, but what I do know is, what it don't take an economics degree to figure out, is that people are struggling and people are often hurting and people live on credit. And the last thing people can afford is a medical emergency. And then if you are one of the lucky ones to be able to afford health insurance, and your health insurance company screws you over and denies you when you've been paying the little money that you do have into a premium monthly for them, oh yeah. People's disdain is thick. And it's felt and it's palpable. So I just wanted to talk to that point because I want to speak to people's hearts. Now, contrastly or conversely, whatever the word is, child, I also recognize that when people are hurt, we make really poor choices oftentimes, or we settle into poor thinking patterns when we're hurting. And saying that to say, this CEO being murdered in cold-blooded daylight, or I know it was nighttime, but daylight in the sense that it was open in the open air on a busy street in the middle of New York City, that's a big deal. And because people's hearts are hurting, we have developed this callous relationship toward death and loss of life. And don't hear what I'm not saying. I don't know whether that man deserved to die or not. That's not the position that I'm in because I'm not God and I'm not even divine mildly, right? So I have no divine connection or perspective to offer because I'm just little old me sitting on my couch making a video. But we do need to have conversation about the callousness. Not even for the sake of him or his family, right? Because, yeah, you could make that case like, oh, he had a wife and the kids and all that, and some people are grieving because of his loss. No doubt about that. That's its own conversation that perhaps is worthy of having. I'd say it's worthy of having. That aside, what does that say about us? Now, we began the picture by looking at it wholly and not just in isolation, right? Or in bits. People's hearts are hurting, and so when people are hurting, they resort to hurtful things. They say hurtful things. They do hurtful things because that's what feels right. And vengeance and revenge feels like the most appropriate response when people are hurting, especially hurting to the extent that people have been hurt by insurance companies. But I guess my concern, and this is where I'll lift the question to you, audience. I won't give the answer, but I definitely want to lift the question. What does that say about us? And how does that make us feel that because we're so deeply hurt, we say and feel things that are so antithetical to what I know we genuinely feel capable of or want within our hearts? And when I say feel capable of, 99.9% of people would not have the courage or the capacity to walk up to a living man, and shoot him in the face. And I don't care how callous he had been to you and your health. Maybe actually that number may be a bit too high, but for the most part, majority of people would not have the balls, the cojones, if you will, to walk up to that man and shoot him. You know why? Yeah, because we're all scared of jail and all of the implications of that, but also because we're not wired that way. We're not wired to murder people, right? And also because you know that your consciousness, your morality would challenge you and it would eat you alive even though they'd done those things to you, right? Or even if you were the specific person that your insurance was cut up, or your claim was denied, or whatever the case may be, you would still have an internal battle that you would be wrestling with forever if you were to try and commit something that this guy did. Luigi, I think his name was, the murderer. Does hatred has it ever healed a pain or a void or a loss in our hearts? And I know this can feel real Barney-ish. This can feel real PBS Kids, because you're thinking about like, yeah, Raven, this sounds all good, but listen, people are hurting, people are starving, people are hurt, and life is hard, and so you get what's coming to you. I get that. But take out the collective. Remove yourself from the collective. How you feel about this? How you feel about your callousness addressing a murder or seeing a murder? Take him out. Fine. Don't have empathy for him. Seriously, I want you to hear what I'm saying. I don't care. Fine. Take him out. The guy who was murdered, I mean. What's going on in your heart? What do you need so that this pain that you feel is addressed? Because somebody being murdered, does that address it? Does somebody's murder address it? Even if he is the person that did it or orchestrated the denial of your claims? I just don't know. I don't know. And I'm leaving that up to you guys, because I'm not here to make critiques, because I know where society is right now. And I know the general malaise that has settled in because people are hurt. So I don't want to make critiques. I want to challenge us to think deeply and to remove ourselves from the collective, because that's what's happened. And actually, let's get to point 2. I think in part, a lot of this frustration is also socially driven. Not that people, even to the extent that the people who have been socially driven to anger, not that they aren't legitimately angry, but what I'm saying is these aren't necessarily causes that people are dying of, or hills that people are dying on. These aren't causes that drive people or things that they're actually committed to doing the work for. No, these are things that they're seeing the collective speak outrage over or protest over online, right? The online warriors. And so now we find ourselves just kind of falling into the trend, falling into the lane of callously laughing at the cold-blooded murder of a person because he acts in a role. Yeah, a role that, is historically corrupt, historically and oppressive. And so we're just falling into that lane. It's a little eerie. It's a little bit uncomfortable, and it's a little scary. Now, I'm also the same girl that says, in order for change to happen, there has to be the conservative people at the bottom, the middle ground people, in the center, and then the pushers, the reformers, or the cultural the boundary pushers, if you will, at the top, right? I did a video about that. I'll link it somewhere here. And I was more so talking about like women and the boundaries that women have to push in order for us to have gotten where we are today in our advancements as women in the culture. But I think the principle can be universally applied, which is that, you do have to have those people that are willing to be like, F it, I don't care, let that man die, right? That's hard to say. That's scary. I can't even imagine myself saying that, but I get how societies have to have that spectrum or that gradient so that we can push for change and so that things can evolve. Because if nobody is willing to go as far as to say that and to feel comfortable being that cold and callous, then we get caught into same old, and nothing ever changes. Nobody feels the compelling to protest evil or the compelling to push up against oppression. So sometimes you got to have the crazy people, right? And when I say crazy, I just mean the radicals that are like, no, burn it down. We gonna make it happen. I don't care what happens or what the consequences are. Yeah, those people are needed. And so which is again why I'm giving a therapeutic assessment rather than my own personal opinions and saying what you should or shouldn't feel like. I'm doing an assessment because I'm checking on the hearts of the people. Where are the hearts of the people? Because in the midst of all of that, we got to take care of that. Are you going in the flow because that's what social media is saying? Or are you truly and genuinely committed to a cause and committed to invoking and affecting real change in a specific subject area or issue area? Because health insurance premiums and the corruption of corporations, particularly in the insurance agencies, that's a real problem. And maybe you're a protester person, or maybe you're a person that infiltrates from within and tries to really implement change that way. However you see change happening, how are you invoking it? How are you, what steps are you taking to personally drive change within your neck of the woods, within your span of reach, right? Or span of influence? Are you by yourself going to be able to change insurance agencies? Of course not. Corruption of corporations? Of course not. But if that is true, then what is also true is that you screaming and hollering and championing the cold-blooded murder of a human being online because you have picked up this marginal issue that somebody told you, or that you kind of felt within your own personal life is a problem, that's also not going to change things either. But what it will do is desensitize your heart to seriousness, severity, weight, beauty, sacredness of life. Because and this is my third and final point, and then I'll let it go here. That's the thing that we're missing. In doing all this and championing this man's death and watching people champion, because maybe you didn't do it, but maybe you watched people champion this man's death, and us all just respond callously, and then we're angry at the news media for being so shocked by it, which I get it, because it's like, how are you shocked and meanwhile people are hurting? I get it. But what I'm saying is, every time we jump on these collective social media bandwagons of championing a cause or railing against a problem within the world or within our even local context, every time we get on these bandwagons without one doing a heart check and making sure, it actually aligns with our own personal values and not just something that tickled our ears and tickled our fancy and cultivated that outrage culture that we're all victims of. Every time we jump on these bandwagons, we lose a bit of ourselves. And not lose in the sense of now you're just this weirdo person who has no idea who you are, perhaps. But I just mean lose in the sense that what compels your morality that isn't tethered to your surroundings? What compels your heart and your humanity that isn't tethered to things that you consume online? Are you so chronically online that all of your opinions, all of your perspectives, all of your ideas are tethered to somebody else's, or tethered to the outrage of the day? If you're outraged by the way this corporations and CEOs do working class people and lay people, be outraged. And also go help a single working class mom who has kids, and you see how high the groceries are right now. Go help one out and give a $20 gift card to, or maybe you're that person. So maybe start a community group with the girls in or guys in your community, and do carpooling or grocery pulling or something. And obviously these are minuscule examples and just things I just came up with on the fly. But what I'm saying is, it does us no good to engage in outrage culture if our lives actually don't produce things that combat the things that we're outraged about. Again, it's not about changing the world, right? But it's about taking personal responsibility for your corner of the world and doing what you can to invoke change within it. But just getting lost in the malaise of what the internet tells you to be mad about today is not the way. Insurance companies are trash and corrupt. So what are you going to do? Become a politician? Are you going to take up petitions for the woman who was denied? Are you going to start a public campaign against them? What? Our government system is corrupt, and they are in bed with insurance companies. And that's why prices haven't gone down. And that's why insurance companies can price gouge us to oblivion, right? All of those things are true. And also, we still have personal responsibility. And our lives are still largely within our hands, and the quality of our culture and the quality of our society is still largely within our hands. So we have to decide how we're going to respond to it. I'm not mad at people for being mad or even kind of confused or content with his death. I'm not mad at you, and I don't want you to hear this as mad anger or judgment toward you. I want you to hear this as a snapping or a conscious check. I want you to shake your consciousness a bit. I say that often. And assess why you're angry, what you want to do about it, and where you should place it. And I just don't know how productive it is to place it in callousness toward death, no matter who it is. Not because he deserves your empathy, but because you deserve better than that perspective. The pain that you feel that perhaps drove you to that callousness and apathy toward his death, that pain deserves more. That pain deserves a second look, more effort, more attention. You don't want to bury it in the malaise of of social media outrage culture. Okay? I hope that all made sense. I told you I just kind of wanted to talk and espouse thought a little bit here. You see, I'm sitting in a new kind of a position because I've been messing up my camera, guys, and I don't really know how to fix it. So I'm just trying to try new things, but I knew I needed to get a video out this week. Y'all pray for me because I've been going through a lot, like I said in the beginning of the video, but I'm going to make it through it. And I'm going to do some videos. Let me say this really quick because I saw your comments. I'm going to do videos about birth order. And I know I did the one about eldest daughters. I have a part 2 to that. And I also am going to do one about middle children and younger children, like baby children. Well, the baby of the family. And so that's what's coming next down the pipeline of my videos. I'm going to be in that therapist bag a bit more, I promise you. And this was my way of kind of doing culture and therapist at the same time. So let me know if you like this kind of this kind of content. And I think what I'm also going to do is kind of start doing how I like conducting my conversations in the video, like sessions. So let me know if you're interested in that sort of a thing and what kind of bag you think I should be parking into or hopping into when I come on camera. But anyway, I'd love to hear from y'all. So like, comment, and subscribe. It means so much to me. And until next time, I'll talk to you later. Bye.